Hello tanks and tankettes, and welcome to Supporter Spotlight number 32, which I've been more or less on and off working on for approaching a fortnight now. It might actually be a solid fortnight. Yeah, I've had one of my unintentional hiatuses, which happen sometimes, and it's usually because I'm not feeling so great, but that's the fun thing about depression. It just likes to sneak up on you from time to time. I don't recommend it as a hobby. There are better ones available. Even playing World of Tanks is better, although it can lead to depression. Maybe I shouldn't have gone in that direction. Anyway, so yeah, I feel like I'm getting some momentum back, though. I've had a little break from things, and it's time to start actually doing my job again, which is trying to entertain you fine gals and guys. So we're going to start off with this game from Game Glitch. He's in the Panther 2, and although this is theoretically a tier 9 match, it's actually mostly tier 8s. It's not bad matchmaking at all. In fact, the enemy team has one less tier 9, and I don't know why. It's just one of those quirks of matchmaking. And they've also got more scout tanks, I believe. Or am I... No, yes, they do. They have one more scout tank, so they have less in the way of primary firepower, should we put it that way? Anyway, so we'll see if that makes a difference or not. So the Panther 2, often a little overlooked. I mean, the Panther's quite iconic, and then the E50 and the E50M are both very good machines, but the Panther 2, well, it's still a pretty good tank, but it's maybe not the most exciting medium tank in the world. It does have a good gun for a tier 8 medium. It's just around 200mm of penetration. It's got, I think, 250 average damage, which is, you know, it's pretty acceptable. And the machine itself, enough armour to bounce some lower tiers, but you're not going to do much against same tiers and higher, and tank destroyers, and basically anything with enough penetration. But it's just, I don't know, it's not a hugely exciting machine, but it's got enough of everything, and it's one I personally enjoyed playing through. Now, he had enough gun depression there to work over that T32, and the fact that T32 was there was a bit... I'm not entirely sure why he decided to press on. Maybe he expected some of his allies would have come to this position where Game Glitch is now, but that wasn't the case, so Game Glitch was able to quite freely get round behind him and work him over and assist in his destruction. And the damage he's done to the T32, and also a bit of damage to other targets as well. I mean, he's now already over 2,000 damage done in this game, so that's not too shabby at all. So some nice side shots on the T10. They've got, I mean, it kind of seems like this enemy team doesn't have a lot of tanks up in this area. There's still a 5100 that was around the hill that you might have just run away because it's got the speed for it. And then there's some tank destroyers around the base. We know there's some tank destroyers along the J line there as well. And there's the 5100. In fact, there's another 5100. There's two of them. So the enemy team was not really contesting the upper ground that hard. And although there's quite a few of Game Glitch's own team that went down to the valley area as well, in principle they should be able to win this the high ground, but it's not a done deal though by any means. Just the fact that there are so many enemy tanks back there means that that could potentially be a lot of firepower aimed at anybody that does get spotted. That's one less bit of firepower though. That Yak Tiger 8.8 just... I think Game Glitch was able to perma-track him. So clearly he didn't have the best repair crew. However, that's a nasty hit there from the Ferdinand, so Game Glitch has got to be careful there, because that 30, of course, the 128mm gun, it's not going to take too many hits to just knock Game Glitch out completely. And the 5100's back there as well. That could be equally nasty, of course, with their auto-loaders. However, one of them has just been taken out by the Type 4. Now, the Type 4 really, who is called Steve... He really actually does do what you need a top tier heavy tank to do in this. We're definitely going to give that guy a shout out, because too often you see people in his position just hanging back, being shy, not actually using their armour and their hit points to push forward to create a space for the rest of their team to move up. But this Type 4 Heavy absolutely was. He is bucking the trend of the stereotype of Steve. So, Game Glitch decides to press on a bit more, but runs right into the T-32, who was coming back in this direction. And that's not so good, because he's now going to be struggling with this guy's armour. Now, he gets a bounce on the front. The 704 takes out the Centurion 7-1, who was coming down to back him up. That takes out his ammo rack, which is nasty. And he's really struggling to get this this final shot on the T-32 here. And then it's a low roll, 3 health. And at that point, the 704 gets him with HE. I'm not quite sure why he was firing HE, but that's a big enough gun that it was enough to just knock him out. So, unusually, the person whose point of view the game was from dies before the end, and that's not a thing you see that often in replays. But as you can see, he did enough, and look at his final damage count there, 4,700, and that's pretty respectable for a Panther 2. But it was enough, and the enemy team's down to now only 2 tanks, so that they're able to quite easily take out the rest of them. Although, when he was looking at the WZ, I don't think that WZ scout was doing the best job in the world there, and the fact that he got taken out in that kind of obvious fashion, yeah. He had all the mobility going for him, and did he make use of it? No. And there we go, his platoon mate, Friendship is Magic, gets the final kill on the artillery. So that was an ace for Game Glitch with a high caliber, and with the amount of damage done, I'm not surprised. And from the score screens you'll see in a second, or from the team score screen, he did quite a lot of damage there. I mean, he didn't do any blind hits, so it was the 4750. But the next best was that Type 4 Heavy, who was leading, from the front. He was doing what you were supposed to do in a Type 4 Heavy. And after that, actually, it was the WZ, but I'm guessing he picked up a bunch of spotting damage. So, yeah, in the end, having that high ground advantage was decisive. And although it can go wrong when you're pushing into a lot of campers, in this case, it didn't. They were able to dismantle the enemy team sufficiently and sweep up the win. So, next we have Sebedy in the bat chat, and he's going to have kind of a slog with this match. And it's principally because of the way matchmaking has distributed the various tanks in this game. It's Prokhorovka, there's 1 artillery, and that's never welcome on this map. But more so than that, the enemy team has, 7 tank destroyers. So that's just about half the team. In fact, it's over half the team if you count the artillery. It is comprised of tank destroyers and arty. That is going to make for a very campy enemy team. And on this map, that is always annoying to deal with. So that kind of links this replay with the last replay. The last game we had Game Glitch facing off against a team that was sort of, they were kind of passive, they were kind of campy, they were not particularly contesting the important areas of the map that well. And in this case, it's more that we know pretty much where those tank destroyers are going to be. It's either going to be in the northwest or the northeast corner, and it then means that approaching those areas is going to be incredibly tricky, because you're going to be met with a hail of very high powered tank destroyer shells, which can wipe out a tank in seconds. We've already lost the team's one of the team's scout tanks, so that is just going to be a bit frustrating to deal with, and it's going to require patience. So Sebedy's already had quite a good first clip. He just powered up to the mid-ridge here and didn't get spotted. He, I think, bounced or missed 1 shell out of that first clip. In fact, I think it was a bounce rather than a miss. And because none of the enemy team had come up to this mid-ridge area, he didn't get spotted doing it, so he could just sit there quite comfortably. But, of course, he didn't know that going in there, so he came up and positioned himself in such a way that he could use the fantastic agility of the bat chat to make a fast getaway if possible. And I think that's part of the key to playing the Batchat is you always have to think about how you're going to get out of there. And it's true for the auto-loading French heavies as well. You always have to plan ahead in order to ensure that you're going to have a safe route to escape and reload, because of course you don't have the armour, or, well, really any armour, to sit and just face off against enemies and reload safely as you would with a conventional tank. And even if you did have the armour, you'd still be sitting there for an awfully long time. You wouldn't want to sit in front of somebody in a mouse for 40 seconds waiting to reload, for example. So they had, from their own side, one 5120 that's gone up there. There's a medium tank that's on the flank of the hill as well. So they haven't really got control of the hill, and I think it's more maybe the fear of getting hit by artillery that's made his own team cautious about going up there. But of course, with there almost certainly being some tank destroyers on the little island area. We call it an island, but it's not really an island. The bit that's surrounded by the stream. Anybody that tried to go down that hill to push down would almost certainly get obliterated by multiple tank destroyers. But we don't exactly know who is where yet. Only two of them have been spotted, a Waffle Panzer IV and an AT-15. So he's positioning himself again. He could potentially reload here, but he's only fired one shell out of this clip, so it's probably worth hanging on to the rest of it. That's if you've got maybe 3 or even 2 shells left in a clip, then you probably would reload, but for 4 shells left, that's fine. So inevitably, and we've skipped on a little bit ahead here, I mean, we've like the 1-2 line has been thinned out considerably. They don't have a scout left at this point, but they've obviously got people over here that have good enough view ranges. So it doesn't take a lot for like the people that have been bold enough to venture forwards to try and spot those tank destroyers have been spotted, and blap blap blap. You know, it doesn't take a lot to take out a medium tank when you've got several guns facing you that, you know, can do 750 average damage per shell. In fact, there's a Death Star around somewhere, so that can do even more. Now we're figuring out by this stage, and I have cut bits out, bits where he's reloading or just relocating from side to side. We've figured out more or less that about half the enemy team, just under half, is apart from the T-30, who we know now is in the middle. They're all in that northwest corner, basically, and the T-30's already taken a big whack from artillery, so he's reasonably low health. So he's moved more to the middle of the mid-ridge, and this is where he makes his first kind of significant mistake. I think he really wanted this T-30 kill, and it could have gone so much worse. He has still had to use both his repair and his med kit, though, but considering how long he was sat there, I mean, he was pushing it a bit for time, but he took one in the tracks, and then he took another one which knocked out a crew member. So if he'd sat there for much longer, he potentially could have just been completely obliterated. It all comes down to... we don't know how many guns turned in his direction. We only know how many fired at him. So he's going to use his mobility to... I mean, he's basically got to be the eyes of the team at this point. They are winning, but again, it's a matter of just dismantling this pocket of enemy tanks. And in this case, it's enemy tanks with very big guns, and that makes spotting a bit risky. And the fact that he's in such a fast machine makes him by far the best placed even to move up and actually try and help out his team. And of course, he's getting rewarded for it as well. He's getting the spotting damage, so it's all good for him, even if he doesn't do a single bit more damage himself. And he's already done 4,000. So again, using his mobility and I think exploiting the fact that, I mean, he's going to be a fast-moving target. None of these have particularly... like the ones he has to most worry about, particularly the Death Star, don't potentially have very fast-aiming guns. So he can kind of get away with it here. It's just the fact that it is tank destroyers means that his mobility becomes a really big asset. And every time one of these people fires, you know, every time one of them gets spotted, they're just getting systematically taken out by all of his allies. So this one, I mean, up till this point, if his team had been not patient, if they'd all just rushed in, it probably could have gone very badly wrong. But as it's worked out, no, his team was sufficiently patient that they could just work together as a group, and this is the result. He got not only a scout medal but a patrol duty medal in his bat chat. And it's kind of it's results like these that make people say things like, you know, well, scouts are dead as a class because high tier medium tanks can do all they do and better. And that's kind of true. Scouts as they were once upon a time don't really exist in this game anymore, but they still kind of have a function. It's just in terms of pure scouting, you get results like this. That was 6,000 assistance damage. And if I had to speculate, you know, he's almost certainly got the vision skills and optics on his tank and his crew, but he might also have like brothers in arms, which would help even further. But I mean, I think the Batchat's got like a 400 meter base view range? It might even be like 410 meter base view range. So who knows? Anyway, clearly it was more than good enough. Lastly, we have some warships action. And I know this is usually the point where a bunch of people tune off, but honestly, I kind of like having these mixed videos. It mixes the pace up a bit, and I know not everybody likes the warships, which is why I have it at the end, but I think there's a lot of crossover between the games. A lot of people that play warships also play tanks, and that's just based on, you know, kind of hearsay on my part. Or not hearsay, what's the word I'm looking for? Nope, it's gone, whatever word it was. But it's my gut feeling that a lot of people that play tanks also play warships, or that they've moved from one to the other. Because as I've said in the past, I think there are things about warships that are just less frustrating overall. It's not to say it's not completely without frustration at all, of course, in its game mechanics. But there are things that I have a very low threshold of tolerance for in World of Tanks these days that just don't really apply to warships in the same way. So it's still possible, entirely possible for me to sit down and play hours and hours of warships, but I could not imagine doing that in World of Tanks outside of, you know, playing with Circle on a stream. And even then, you know, that's like once, maybe twice a week these days. So, yeah. Anyway, this is Hildebrand. He's in the Hatsuharu. As it is now, of course, we know there are changes to the Japanese destroyer line on the way. They're being very cagey, very coy about telling us community contributors anything about the upcoming changes. I mean, we know there are changes, but then aside from you know, the publicly available information so far, we don't really know anything that the rest of you don't know, barring the super testers that are actually playing them. Anyway, he laid down smoke and then reversed because smokes are big obvious torpedo magnets. And one of the things I found when playing destroyers is that the temptation is to just like slam to a halt and have a really small smoke circle. But it's easier to aim at a smaller smoke circle. Having a larger smoke blob or a smoke cloud laid down definitely gives you more options. Although at the higher tiers, I mean, if you're facing off against a Shimakaze, for example, they can just blanket the entire smoke cloud with torpedoes, no matter how big you make it, just because they get so many torpedoes. But in this case, well, Hildebrand was able to, he just went in reverse and that was fine, it worked out. And actually, something I use a lot on my destroyers is the acceleration module, which gives you quite a hefty bonus to your acceleration from a standing start. And I think that applies, almost certain it applies to going in reverse as well as going forwards. So this is not super ideal. I mean, If it was just him versus that enemy destroyer, opening up wouldn't have been too bad of an idea at all. But there's a Błyskawica back there as well, plus he's got other ships firing at him, so this is rather a lot of opposition to be facing in a Japanese destroyer when they're all shooting at you, and he's now holding fire because he wants to get unspotted. And there we are. Now his own torps are out, and it's unlikely that they'll hit anything, but you never know. It looks like that Hatsuharu, the enemy Hatsuharu, however, will be safe for now. And although he's come out of this rather bruised, I mean, the enemy destroyers are also rather bruised, so as long as he can stay alive, it's not like it's been a total waste, but he just will have so much health to work, less health to work with throughout the rest of the match now. So he's got to be careful from this point forwards. He's got to pick and choose when and where to reveal himself, if he, does get that choice, because there's a carrier in play. The carrier might make that choice for him. So he took out the Hatsu with his guns, and he's now re-stealthed, which is good. There's still that Błyskawica running around in the middle, though. Now, he can comfortably outspot the Błyskawica, but the Błyskawica is a faster ship, and it also is by far the better gunboat. Although, I mean, you've seen that the guns on this aren't exactly bad. It's just they don't have a particularly high rate of fire. However, in that case, it wasn't anything to do with the guns that got him that kill. He put out a spread in just the general direction of the Błyskawica, and one of them found its mark. And it's not like you have a limited supply of torpedoes. The biggest thing when considering when to launch torpedoes on, and it's kind of like with the previous replay with an auto-loader, it's the reload. It's considering the kind of the reload time you're going to have and what that's going to do to your availability, because there are times when you maybe will put out a speculative drop of torpedoes that you think might hit something but possibly won't, and then a minute later, while you're still in your reload, you come across a perfect target, and then you've got to wait. And sometimes that wait can then cost you the chance on that perfect target, or you might end up getting spotted by planes, or something might happen along the way. So it's one of those judgment calls. Sometimes you'll get it right, and sometimes you'll get it wrong. Sometimes you'll wish you had put out a speculative drop, and other times you'll completely curse the fact that you did. So he's spotted again, which is not good, but he's got smoke available, so we can drop it in the path between the line of sight between him and those two ships there, that Cleveland and, what is that, a Scharnhorst? Looks like his torpedoes are going to hit. The Scharnhorst is slowing down there, in fact, and that's going to be 2 hits, which is a significant chunk of his remaining health. That's a nice extra bit of damage as well. The Cleveland has passed in front of the Ion, so he's sensibly not opening fire. Although at this point he probably could without fear of being spotted. The smoke that he laid down will block the line of sight, and there aren't planes close enough to actually spot him. So he probably could have parked himself in or near the smoke and actually opened fire. Although having said that, he did open fire and was briefly air spotted. And it looks like it's actually a float plane fighter that the Cleveland's got up, so that might have actually done the trick. So maybe he would have been spotted if he fired, but obviously not if he'd been actually in the smoke. If he'd been behind the smoke, he might still have been spotted. I know what I mean. So on this flank, it's just him and a battleship, and the rest of his team is pretty much in the middle, apart from the carriers. They still have 2 carriers left alive. As you can see, one of the enemy carriers has been sunk already. So, I mean, that's useful for Hildebrandt, if nothing else. He doesn't have to worry about planes quite so much. And as the smoke is soon to be disappearing, he decides to open fire, which is probably not the best timing. And I think his idea here was that if he could get that Scharnhorst on fire, get him to use his repair cooldown, he could potentially then get a torpedo off, and well, even just a torpedo would kill him, but fires alone would do some damage. He might also have been thinking the fact that he's near a friendly battleship would be... it would mean they'd more likely fire at the battleship as the easier target to hit, but that's not what the Clevelander's doing. The Clevelander's going for him as a low health destroyer. So he's withdrawing, he's held fire, so he's now re-stealthed, and I think he's just content to let that Gneisenau take the lead for a little bit, because there's still a fair few planes in the air. We're actually going to speed things up a bit here. It's sometimes, like, there are times when sort of jump cutting is preferable, but this is one of those times when I decided I'd leave the footage in, so you could just see him working back round, and I think he decided... I'm not entirely sure if he was thinking he would re-engage the Cleveland or if he'd just get more towards the enemy cap because that's where the remaining ships are. And potentially he could maybe have... if he'd been able to get a bit closer, he could have dropped a smoke screen and started firing at the Cleveland. But that would have been a bit risky. And he's only got one smoke screen left anyway, so he doesn't know if he definitely needs it. Anyway, we've dropped back out, and he decides to open fire. I guess to help out the Gneisenau. Maybe he's figuring the Gneisenau could use the help, and he could use the distraction. But as it is, he's going to land some hits, but the Gneisenau is doing the lion's share of the damage here, or has done the lion's share of the damage. But it maybe stands testament to how good the Cleveland is, that the fact that, you know, he's facing off against a higher tier battleship and still managed to last that long. Anyway, his shots ended up getting the kill. I mean, maybe the reason he opened fire is he was hoping to secure the kill, but as we can see, that Gneisenau isn't doing so well, although some of that is also from the enemy carrier. So they've worn the enemy team down sufficiently at this point that it looks fairly certain that they are going to win. The Gneisenau, in fact, he's burned out from the carrier. Or did he burn out from the Cleveland, actually? He must have burned out from the Cleveland because the carrier doesn't have a kill. I just missed the kill message as it was on the screen there. And I'm too lazy to, you know, pause it, go back, and then try and re-find my place in the recording. So, yeah, anyway, the Cleveland apparently did more damage than I gave him credit for, but I'm pretty sure the carrier got some damage in there as well. So with just him and the carrier, I mean, that would be fine, except he's about to come out of the shadow of this island, and the Nagato is going to have shots on him. And this is actually kind of awkward. He could drop smoke, and he's going to drop smoke, but he has the issue that once he does that, nobody is spotting for him, or rather nobody's spotting the carrier for him. And of course, smoke, as ever, is a two-way street. If you drop it and you're the only one that's spotting the thing that's closest to you, then, and there we go, yeah, you are then kind of just having to guess. And I think he decides he'd much rather try and get the kill and take the risk. So he pops out the smoke. And I mean, this has bought him a little bit of time. He was maybe waiting to see if his torpedoes found their mark. And when it was clear they hadn't, you know, that's when he came out of the smoke. But of course, then this opens him up to fire from the Nagato again, who very nearly killed him there. So, yeah. Now, he does have a little bit of time before the Nagato can fire again, and at least he doesn't have to worry about the Hiryu dropping bombs on his head or anything. But that Nagato could well easily kill him if he's not careful. So, he's taking a risk here. But given the state of the game, I mean, he's clearly judged it more worthwhile taking out this carrier than hiding himself and definitely staying alive. Because if a destroyer's worth of points isn't that much, and even if he had been killed and had failed to kill the carrier, they know where this carrier is, the enemy team, and there we go, there's another fire. The enemy carrier, well, friendly carriers rather, enemy to that carrier, I know what I mean, could have hunted him down with planes and finished off the job. But as it was, he was able to get the kill. And there's still the issue of potentially being spotted from the air, but there's some friendly fighters taking out those enemy fighters. So there we go. And with the final seconds left on the clock, well, I think they've won this one somehow. So for all the fires he set, he actually got an arsonist. I think that was mostly from the carrier. Although he did, I think, set one fire on the Cleveland briefly, but the Cleveland didn't have a lot of health left at that point anyway. And with everything else he did in that game, well, 4 kills. I think he'd have got some spawning damage maybe. So 1800 base XP and top of the team. And actually it was the other Hatsuharu that was second place, so they both did rather well there. So there we go, potential damage. That might have actually had more to do with it. 620,000 potential damage is probably quite good in a destroyer, and that might well have been the thing that got him the bit of XP, you know, that just was enough to push him over that other Hatsuharu. So there we are. I don't know if I'm going to exactly immediately going back to a regular video schedule, but the fact that I've managed to get this one done and dusted is a very good start. And yeah, I'm just going to be trying to get back into the swing of things and see if I can remember what all the buttons do in Sony Vegas, which, you know, it's only been 2 weeks, it's not been that long. I'm sure I'll be fine. So hopefully you have enjoyed this video, and if you have, you can hit the like button, you can leave any comments below, you can sub to my channel if you haven't already, and as always, stay tuned for more.